Hello, welcome back to another PowerPoint. This one is titled Attic Leak Sealing Cautionary Tales. Today's March 19th. The saga continues. Establishing a better access to your attic is one suggestion I would make if you want to undergo a project like this. In that particular picture there, you can see part of the scuttle, and I added a black iron step. I used to have to climb on a ladder, climb on a shelf, and launch myself like a gymnast up into the scuttle. And I came to the conclusion that that was probably going to be dangerous as I got more and more tired, particularly as I'm carrying stuff up to, or material up to the attic. So I added that step, found the studs, used floor flanges for black iron, and affixed that step to the wall. I then created a better scuttle cover by cutting a nice piece of strand board. I attached a handle to it, and it has a much better, tighter fit, and it's easier to manipulate. Don't shut yourself in. Always carry your cell phone. I'm standing in the attic looking down the scuttle. There's my step that I created. There's the shelf underneath it. And there is my new piece of plywood. And I put foam board on it so it has some insulation. But make sure when you crawl up there, you have the handle. You spin it around so you can grab the handle and get back down, because I made a pretty tight fit. Thankfully, I had my cell phone, and my wife is pretty patient with me. Another suggestion I want to make is to put a temperature and humidity monitor in your attic. It's surprisingly informative. I use one by YoLink. You can get the current temperature and humidity. You can also get weekly trending. You can also see the monthly trending. I find it to be quite useful. Winter can be extreme. On this particular day, it was -11 and breezy. I consider 20 miles per hour of wind to be a little more than breezy, particularly when it feels like -36. You'll notice, unfortunately, I was awake at 3:31 a.m. that day, and the attic temperature was 27.5 degrees, and it's -11 outside. Do you see the other picture of the frost there against the, well, what I would hope would have been sheathing, but it's not. A lot of my house has sheathing, but some of it has more foam board. Anyway, I needed to find out what was causing that moisture. Days that are -11 degrees Fahrenheit can be opportunities, and I call this poor man's thermal imaging. We had a cold December, and those errors are pointing to frost on the foam board and frost on some of the framing there. I needed to find out where that was coming from. And you probably remember that beneath this spot is the master bathroom. So it's really not a big surprise where the moisture is coming from, but how could I stop it? You might have a question of how can it be -11 degrees Fahrenheit outside but 27 degrees Fahrenheit in the attic? The answer is I have leaky ductwork and heat flows to cold. I wrapped the ductwork to slow the heat transfer, but in order to totally leak seal it, you need to use something called AeroSeal. If you haven't looked at AeroSeal, there are YouTube videos explaining what it is. I went to Menards and I bought 15-foot rolls of duct wrap, and I used Panduit straps and a strapping gun to further wrap my ductwork, which is not only going to help in the wintertime, it's going to help in the summertime also. Originally it was R6. Now it's better than that. I don't know what exactly, but I wanted to try to slow the warm heat energy that I'm purchasing from flowing out of my ductwork into my unconditioned attic. I made a beeline for that frosty area, and here's what I found. No surprise, there's a bathroom underneath here, so there is a plumbing vent. Take a look at the dirty insulation from all the air that's leaked through there, and look at all the moisture spots. No surprise. Upon further examination, you can see it was worse than I thought. That's the bathroom vent from the sink and the hole left over in 1993 with a lot of dust. There was also Romex going down to the bathroom light, and that had never been sealed. That had to be addressed also. Guess what else? On a minus 11 degree day, there's a silverfish living comfortably, crawling out of that insulation before I sealed it. Gross. At this point, my left knee was fading fast. On the right side there, I could kneel on the 2x4 as it lays flat. But on the left, I'm kneeling on a ceiling joist. So I'm trying to get that cleaned out, all of that insulation out of there, so I can seal it and then put a piece of batt insulation in there. So that's kind of what I was fighting to get to. And that pink insulation there in the left-hand picture is soffit insulation that was put there in 1993 when the home was built. Look at all that moisture that was collecting along that wall. So that's where that frost was coming from. Here's what it looks like when I got it finished. I've left that outside wall with no plywood due to the moisture concerns. Those of you that said that caulk splits, you're absolutely right. I had to go back and re-caulk those within a month because it split and separated. Here's the rest of that wall. The left-hand side picture, the top of that is the master bathroom. I did leave a piece of plywood there so I could maneuver to do caulking and do some extra tucking of the batt insulation. What I'm trying to do is keep the batt insulation tight to the sheetrock by keeping it tight between the ceiling joist and the top plate of the outside wall, and trusting that the insulation in the wall cavity is going to do its job. Not everything went according to plan. Shocker, I know. These two little areas, I thought, yeah, I'll just cut a piece of plywood with my fancy DeWalt circular cordless saw, and so I covered them. And then I got a little suspicious, or I started to think, you know, what if moisture collects under that plywood? And so I went up there and I checked, and sure enough, there was mold growing under both of those little pieces of plywood. And so I removed them as fast as I could. I've left them uncovered, but then I started to worry about the rest of the plywood. On these two slides, what I'd like you to notice is I still get some quarter-sized water spots from nails and other things that drip from the strand board. I'm not that concerned about that. The reason is because now it evaporates and it's not going to be able to drip down through the insulation and eventually hit my sheetrock in the bedrooms. However, based on that last slide, the previous slide I showed you, I was very concerned that I might have mold growing on some of my other plywood underneath. So I removed all the screw fasteners that I had so meticulously fastened down the plywood with, and I lifted over 30 pieces of plywood to look underneath to see if there was mold under any of those. And thankfully, they were all as dry as a bone. But I just want to caution you, be really careful when you're over a bathroom or over some of those little tricky areas where you can't leak seal or there's a bunch of Romex or maybe some B-vent. Be very careful and double check. So I'm double checking a lot, but it's a lot easier to crawl up there now that I have plywood. So it's not as daunting as I'm making it sound once you get the plywood in place and you can actually move in your attic, but be cautious. Why do I still have moisture in my attic? I have a whole house humidifier and I have leaky ductwork in my attic. The wrap I added won't stop the duct leaking. As a matter of fact, I never had moisture on the sheetrock in the bedrooms near the heat runs until I added a whole house humidifier in 2002. Why not just turn off the humidifier? If I do that, we get sinus headaches, static electricity, cracked floors, cabinets. It's very uncomfortable to have 15% relative humidity in your home. It's way too dry. I need moisture to survive the Iowa heating season. I hope you find this helpful. Thanks for listening, and I have more to come. Thanks.